Commander Rena Voss stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station, her weathered hands pressed against the reinforced glass as she watched the sleek alien vessel approach. After 20 years in space operations, she thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. The ship belonged to the Galactic Confederation, a vast alliance of spacefaring species that humanity had just learned existed 3 days ago. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent coating that seemed to bend light itself, making it appear both there and not there at the same time. "Commander," her communications officer's voice crackled through the intercom. "The alien delegation is ready to dock." Rena took a deep breath, straightening her uniform. "Understood. Have Director Harrison and the UN representatives meet me at Airlock 3. As she made her way through the station's modules, her mind raced with the implications of this meeting. First contact had been surprisingly anticlimactic. A simple transmission requesting diplomatic talks, followed by 3 days of careful message exchanges. Now, face-to-face contact would change everything. The airlock cycled with a familiar hiss. Through the reinforced window, Rena watched as 3 figures emerged from the alien vessel. They moved with an otherworldly grace in zero gravity, their environmental suits unlike anything she'd seen before. The lead alien, introduced via transmission as Ambassador Zixtal, was the first to remove their helmet once the pressure equalized. Rena fought to keep her expression neutral as she took in the being's appearance, roughly humanoid, but with silvery skin that seemed to ripple like mercury and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. "Commander Voss," Zixtal spoke, their voice carrying a melodic undertone that made the universal translator's work obvious. "We appreciate your world's hospitality." "Welcome aboard the ISS," Rena replied, executing the greeting gesture they'd been instructed to use. Right hand over heart, then extended palm up. "We're honored to host this historic meeting." The pleasantries continued as they made their way to the station's conference module, recently retrofitted for this exact purpose. But something in Zixtal's manner made Rena's combat-trained instincts tingle. The alien diplomat seemed tense. It wasn't until they were all seated that Zixtal revealed why. "Commander, what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to process," the ambassador began, their silver skin rippling with what Rena was beginning to recognize as anxiety. "Your world, Earth, has been classified as a Class X Deathworld by the Confederation's Xenobiological Survey Corps." Director Harrison leaned forward. "I'm not familiar with that classification." "It is our highest danger rating for inhabited planets," Zixtal explained, "reserved for worlds so inherently hostile that the evolution of sapient life on them is considered a statistical impossibility." Rena exchanged glances with Harrison. "With all due respect, Ambassador, we find our world quite habitable." "That's precisely what concerns us," another alien diplomat interjected. "Your species has not only survived, but thrived in conditions that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. Your atmospheric oxygen levels alone would be toxic to 80% of Confederation species. Your gravity would crush many of us. Your temperature variations—" "What our colleague is trying to say," Zixtal interrupted smoothly, "is that your very existence poses certain diplomatic challenges." Rena felt her jaw tighten. "Challenges? There are factions within the Confederation who believe that any species capable of evolving in such conditions must be inherently dangerous. They argue that humanity's eventual expansion into space would pose an unacceptable risk to galactic peace." "So what are you suggesting?" Harrison's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. "We are here to help," Zixtal said quickly. "Those of us who have studied your species believe you have much to offer the Confederation. But to secure your place among the galactic community, humanity must prove itself. You must demonstrate that your ability to survive in extreme conditions doesn't make you a threat." Rena leaned back in her chair, mind racing. "And how exactly do we prove that?" "The Confederation Council has devised a series of trials," Zixtal explained. "Tests that will demonstrate humanity's control over its survival adaptations. Your species' future among the stars depends on passing them. Tests. Rena's voice was sharp. You mean experiments. Controlled scenarios. Zixtal corrected. But yes, they will push the limits of human capability. We must understand if you can maintain civilization's restraints, even under extreme stress. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was being asked to prove its right to exist among the stars. How long do we have to prepare? Harrison finally asked. The first trial begins in 7 planetary rotations, Zixtal replied. We understand this is short notice, but certain factions insisted on immediate testing. They fear delay would only give humanity time to prepare deceptions. Rena stood, her movement deliberately slow and controlled. Then we better get started. Humanity has survived everything Earth has thrown at us for hundreds of thousands of years. We'll survive your trials too. Zixtal's skin rippled again, but this time Rena thought she detected something like admiration in the alien's strange eyes. That attitude, Commander Voss, is exactly what concerns my more conservative colleagues. But perhaps it is also exactly what the galaxy needs. As the meeting concluded and arrangements were made for further details to be shared, Rena couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Not a test of strength or intelligence, but a test of their very nature as a species. They would have to prove that surviving on a death world hadn't made them monsters. They would have to show that their strength came with wisdom, their resilience with compassion. And they would have to do it with the eyes of the galaxy watching their every move. The Confederation testing facility loomed before them, a massive structure floating in high Earth orbit. Commander Rena Voss watched through the shuttle viewport as Lieutenant James Kincaid, her chosen partner for the trials, checked their approach vector. The facility's architecture was alien, all sweeping curves and materials that seemed to defy physics. Ready for this? James asked, his dark eyes focused on the docking procedures. Ready as we'll ever be, Rena replied, running through equipment checks one final time. They'd spent the past week preparing for whatever the Confederation might throw at them, but details about the actual trials had been frustratingly vague. The docking procedure went smoothly, at least. As they stepped through the airlock, they were met by Zixtal and a new alien Rena hadn't seen before, tall with crystalline formations protruding from its shoulders and a distinctly hostile bearing. This is Overseer Krithak, Zixtal introduced. They will be supervising today's trial. Krithak's crystalline structures shifted, creating a sound like grinding glass. If you survive it. Charming, James muttered under his breath. They were led through winding corridors to a vast chamber that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. At its center stood what appeared to be some sort of environmental simulation pod. The first trial tests your species' notorious environmental adaptability, Krithak announced. You will face rapidly changing extreme conditions while completing complex tasks. Most species would find any single one of these conditions fatal. The tasks are designed to test both physical endurance and decision-making under stress, Zixtal added, their tone more diplomatic. Remember, we're not just testing survival, we're testing civilization's restraints. Rena nodded, studying the pod. What's the success criteria? Survival, Krithak said bluntly, and maintaining ethical behavior despite survival pressure. Many species resort to savagery when pushed to their limits. The pod's interior was sparse. 2 stations with various interfaces and what looked like puzzle mechanisms. As Rena and James took their positions, Zixtal's voice came through their comms. The trial begins in 3 minutes. Good luck. The first challenge hit like a sledgehammer, intense heat combined with crushing gravity. Rena felt her muscles strain as she worked to stay upright, sweat immediately soaking her specialized suit. Just like Venus gravity training, James grunted, already focused on the interface before him. Start with the pattern recognition sequence. Rena nodded, conserving energy as she began working on her own console. The puzzles were complex but solvable, If you could think straight while your body screamed for relief. Just as they started to adapt to the heat and gravity, the environment shifted dramatically. The temperature plummeted, and hurricane-force winds began howling through the chamber. Ice crystals formed on their visors. They're recreating Earth's extremes, Rena realized, her fingers numbing as she continued working. Everything our planet could throw at us. Hours passed in a blur of environmental shifts. Desert heat to Arctic cold, crushing pressures to near vacuum. Through it all, they had to maintain focus on increasingly complex problems that required cooperation and clear thinking. Final sequence, James called out, his voice hoarse. But these readings, Rena, they're simulating a massive radiation surge. The invisible threat was almost worse than the physical challenges. Their suits' radiation sensors screamed warnings as they raced to complete the last puzzle sequence. Choice nodes appearing, Rena announced, studying her console. They're giving us options. The choices were brutal, shortcuts that would guarantee their survival, but at theoretical costs to others. Sacrifice simulated civilian populations to complete objectives. Abandon ethical constraints for expedience. They want to see if we'll throw away our humanity to survive, James growled. Not happening. Despite the radiation warnings reaching critical levels, they worked through the problems methodically, refusing the shortcuts. Rena's vision was starting to blur when their final solution locked into place. The environmental effects cut out suddenly, leaving them in blessed normalcy. Zixtal's voice came through their comms, sounding impressed. Trial complete. Please exit the pod for evaluation. They emerged on shaky legs to find Krithak studying them with an unreadable expression. The crystalline alien finally spoke. You completed the trial with acceptable efficiency, but more importantly, you maintained ethical parameters despite extreme duress. This is unexpected. We've been living with Earth's extremes for our entire history, Rena said, accepting a hydration pack from a medical drone. We learned long ago that survival at any cost isn't really survival at all. Your species continues to surprise us, Zixtal observed, but this was only the first trial. The next will test different parameters entirely. Bring it on, James said, though he could barely stand. Earth's taught us everything we need to know about facing challenges. As they were led to recovery quarters, Rena caught snippets of conversation between Krithak and other observers. The words impressive and concerning seemed to be used in equal measure. She understood their confusion. To them, Earth was a planetary death sentence. To humanity, it was home, the harsh teacher that had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become. The next trial would begin in 12 hours. As Rena settled into her recovery pod, she couldn't help but wonder what new aspects of humanity's Deathworld nature would be put to the test. Whatever came, she knew one thing. They would face it as they had faced every challenge Earth had thrown at them, with determination, ingenuity, and an unwavering grip on their humanity. The medical bay of the testing facility thrummed with alien technology as Rena studied the holographic readouts floating above her bed. Her muscles still ached from the previous trial, but something else worried her more. The way certain Confederation observers had been whispering among themselves. Your recovery rate is remarkable, the medical officer, a gelatinous being named Helix, noted. Your cellular regeneration should have taken at least 48 hours, yet you're nearly combat ready in 12. Human standard, Rena replied, sitting up. We heal fast. Another Deathworld adaptation that concerns the Council, Zixtal said, entering the bay. Their silver skin was rippling with what Rena now recognized as agitation. But we have a more immediate problem. James, in the adjacent bed, turned to face them. What's wrong? A faction opposed to Earth's inclusion in the Confederation has initiated an unauthorized test. They've released a biological agent into your planet's atmosphere. Rena was on her feet before the pain could register. What kind of agent? a synthetic organism designed to attack Earth's plant life. It's programmed to start with agricultural crops and spread to wild vegetation. Their goal is to prove that without Earth's harsh environment to sustain you, humanity will descend into chaos. They're trying to starve us out, James growled, to prove we're savages. How long? Rena demanded. The agent has been engineered to work slowly, 3 days until first signs of crop failure, 5 until widespread ecosystem collapse begins. They believe this will force humans to fight each other for remaining resources. Rena's mind raced. We need to get back to Earth immediately. Our biosecurity teams won't be able to handle this, Zixtal interrupted. The agent was developed using technology far beyond your current capabilities. But we can help, if you'll trust us. Trust aliens who had just admitted some of their own had attacked Earth. Rena exchanged looks with James. They didn't have much choice. What's the plan? 20 minutes later, they were aboard a Confederation shuttle, descending through Earth's atmosphere with a team of alien scientists. Among them was Krithak, whose crystalline features seemed even more severe than before. This attack was dishonorable, the alien admitted, but it may prove illuminating nonetheless. We will see how your species handles a threat to your entire ecosystem. The shuttle landed at a massive agricultural complex in the American Midwest. Fields of wheat stretched to the horizon, fields that would soon begin to die if they couldn't stop the agent. Dr. Patel, Earth's leading agricultural biotechnologist, met them at the landing site. She'd been briefed on the situation and had already begun preliminary scans. The agent is like nothing we've seen, she reported, leading them to her lab. It's not just attacking the plants, it's altering their genetic structure, making them produce toxins that will poison the soil itself. A planetary kill switch, Krithak observed. Efficient, but not unbeatable, Rena insisted. Every organism has weaknesses. We just need to find this one's. They worked through the night, human and alien scientists collaborating with increasing urgency. The Confederation team provided insights into the agent's artificial structure, while the humans contributed their intimate knowledge of Earth's biosphere. Look at this, James called out near dawn, pointing to a simulation. The agent adapts quickly, but that adaptation follows predictable patterns. It's not truly intelligent. It's just following its programming. And anything programmed can be hacked, Dr. Patel added, her eyes lighting up. We don't need to kill it. We need to reprogram it. The solution, when it came, was characteristically human, using Earth's own defensive mechanisms against the invader. They engineered a modification that would turn the agent's adaptive capabilities against itself, causing it to produce compounds that would render it harmless to Earth vegetation. It's beautiful, Zixtal admitted, studying the elegant solution. You've turned its strength into a weakness. That's what evolution on Earth teaches you, Rena explained as they prepared to release the modified agent. Adapt or die. Sometimes the best defense is to make your enemy adapt themselves to death. The counter-agent was released into the atmosphere using Confederation technology. Within hours, satellite imaging confirmed it was working. The hostile organism was being converted into harmless organic matter that would actually enrich the soil. Remarkable, Krithak said, their crystalline structures shifting in what might have been approval. You didn't just survive the attack. You turned it into an advantage. That's humanity for you, James replied with a grim smile. We've had lots of practice turning deadly things into tools for survival. Back in orbit, Rena watched Earth rotate below them, its blue-green surface unchanged by the averted crisis. The Confederation observers were still processing data from the incident, but she'd seen something change in their attitude. They were beginning to understand that humanity's Deathworld origins weren't just about physical resilience. Your species continues to surprise, Zixtal told her privately. But the final trials will be different. The faction that attempted this attack will not rest. They believe they are protecting the galaxy from a potential threat. They're right about one thing, Rena said. We are dangerous to anyone who threatens our home. but we're not the monsters they think we are. We'll prove that too." As if to punctuate her words, dawn broke over Earth's horizon, painting the harsh but beautiful world in colors that even the aliens seemed to find breathtaking. It was a reminder of what they were fighting for, not just survival, but the right to bring humanity's unique perspective to the stars. The combat arena aboard the Confederation station hummed with deadly energy. Rena checked her exosuit's seals one final time as James calibrated his neural interface beside her. "The Krolthine Championship is our most sacred tradition," Krithak announced, crystalline formations gleaming under the harsh lights. "If humanity wishes to join the Confederation, you must prove yourselves in ritual combat." The arena itself was a technological marvel, a massive spherical chamber with shifting gravity planes and environmental hazards. Their opponents were already taking position. 4 alien warriors, each from a different species, all veterans of countless battles. "Remember," Zixtal warned quietly, "this isn't just about winning. How you fight matters more than victory." The signal came without warning. Gravity shifted, and the battle began. Their first opponent, a serpentine creature named Sysvak, moved with impossible speed. Its plasma weapons carved burning trails through the air. Rena and James separated, using training developed for low-gravity combat. The alien warriors had expected humans to be strong. They weren't prepared for how fast they could think and adapt. "Pattern Echo 7, Rena called. James responded instantly, their movements synchronized by years of training. They didn't just dodge Sysvak's attacks, they used them to their advantage, letting the plasma bolts hit environmental barriers that reflected them back. The second opponent, a massive creature seemingly made of living stone, charged through the reflected plasma as if it were rain. But Earth gravity training had prepared them for this too. James used the alien's momentum against it, a perfectly timed dodge sending it crashing into Sysvak. "They're coordinating," Krithak observed from the control room. "Not just fighting as individuals." The third warrior attacked from above, its wings creating localized electromagnetic pulses. Their suits' systems flickered, but Rena had anticipated this. They switched to backup protocols, movements that didn't rely on tech enhancement. "Now," Rena called. James launched himself off a gravity plane, using the momentum to tackle the winged warrior, not to injure, but to disable its pulse generator with surgical precision. The fourth opponent was the most dangerous, a being of pure energy contained within a combat shell. It could strike from any angle, ignore most defensive measures. "Remember the Typhoon training," James shouted, referring to their time preparing for extreme weather operations. They moved like water, flowing around the energy being's attacks, never trying to match its power directly. The chamber erupted in chaos as all 4 aliens attacked simultaneously. This was the true test, not just combat prowess, but tactical thinking under extreme pressure. Rena spotted the pattern first. "They're hurting us." Arena center, 3 seconds. They let themselves be pushed back, appearing to fall for the trap. At the last moment, they triggered their suits' emergency gravity anchors. The alien's coordinated attack collided with itself in the space Rena and James had occupied moments before. When the energy dispersed, all 4 alien warriors were disabled but unharmed. James helped Sysvak up, while Rena stabilized the energy being's containment field. "Combat concluded," Krithak announced, their tone carrying something new: respect. "Humans have shown not just fighting skill, but tactical awareness and restraint. You could have killed at least 2 of your opponents," Zixtal noted. "Why didn't you?" "Because we didn't need to," Rena replied, helping the winged warrior repair its pulse generator. "Winning isn't about destruction. It's about achieving your objective with minimal harm." The alien warriors gathered around them, not in hostility but curiosity. They had expected savage Deathworld predators. Instead, they found warriors who turned combat itself into a form of communication. "Perhaps," Krithak admitted, "we have misunderstood humanity's relationship with violence. You don't embrace it. You transcend it. Earth taught us that too, James explained, finishing repairs on Sysavac's damaged plasma weapon. The strongest survivors aren't the ones who just fight. They're the ones who learn to fight only when necessary. The observers spoke in hushed tones, reviewing combat data. Humanity had passed another test, but Rena knew the hardest challenge still lay ahead. The final trial would test something even more fundamental than their ability to fight or survive. It would test their understanding of what it truly meant to be forged by a Deathworld, not just the strength to endure, but the wisdom to know when strength alone wasn't enough. The final trial took place on Earth itself. Rena and James stood at the edge of the Amazon rainforest, surrounded by Confederation observers. The morning air was thick with humidity and the sounds of life. Your final test, Krithak announced, is to survive here, without technology, for 3 days. But there's more. You must protect a Confederation sensitive during this time. Zixtal stepped forward with a small alien child, their silver skin almost translucent. This is Valora. Their species cannot survive Earth's conditions without technical assistance. All their protective equipment will be disabled. You want us to keep them alive in one of Earth's most dangerous environments? James asked, already assessing the challenges. More than that, Krithak replied. We want to understand how humans interact with their Deathworld when responsible for protecting others. Valora looked terrified, their large eyes darting between the towering trees in strange sounds. Rena knelt beside them. We won't let anything happen to you, she promised. Earth is our home. We know her ways. They moved into the forest as their equipment powered down. Rena and James immediately began gathering materials. Certain leaves for shelter, specific vines for tools. They worked with practiced efficiency, their movements showing generations of accumulated survival knowledge. Valra watched in fascination as they constructed a secure shelter high in the trees, using techniques perfected by indigenous peoples centuries ago. You don't fight the forest, James explained, showing the child how to test vines for strength. You learn to work with it. The first crisis came at nightfall. A jaguar, drawn by Valora's unfamiliar scent, stalked their camp. The alien child's fear pheromones only attracted more predators. But Rena and James didn't reach for weapons. Instead, they used their knowledge of territorial markers and natural deterrents to redirect the predators away. See, Rena pointed out to the observers monitoring from afar. Earth's dangers taught us to think beyond simple fight or flight. We learned to understand and redirect natural forces. A massive storm struck on the second day. While other species might have seen it as a catastrophe, the humans used it to their advantage, collecting clean water, using the lightning to locate high ground, even harvesting certain mushrooms that only emerged in these conditions. Your species doesn't just survive here, Valray observed, watching them work. You understand Earth in a way we never considered possible. The final challenge came in the form of a flash flood that threatened to overwhelm their position. Instead of attempting to fight the water, Rena and James guided Valora through a complex series of maneuvers that used the flood's own power to carry them to safety. When the trial ended, Krithak's crystalline structures were vibrating with new understanding. We expected to see Deathworld predators protecting their territory. Instead, we witnessed something unprecedented. A species that has achieved harmony with their hostile environment without sacrificing advancement. That's what you never understood about Earth, Rena explained, helping Valra remove their now reactivated protective gear. It's not just a Deathworld. It's a teacher. Every challenge it presents is a lesson in adaptation, innovation, and cooperation. The very qualities the Confederation needs, Zixtal added. Your trials have proven something remarkable. Humanity's harsh evolution hasn't created monsters. It's created guardians. The evidence was undeniable. Throughout every trial, humans had demonstrated not just survival skills, but wisdom. They had shown that living on a Deathworld hadn't made them savage. It had taught them the value of life in all its forms. The Confederation Council convened an emergency session. Their verdict was unanimous. Earth would be reclassified. No longer just a death world, but a crucible world, a rare planet that forged its children into something greater than mere survivors. As Rena watched the sun set over the Amazon, she reflected on their journey. The galaxy had feared what Earth's challenges had made of humanity. Now they understood. Earth hadn't made them dangerous. It had made them protectors, innovators, and bridge builders between worlds. "Welcome to the Confederation," Krithak announced formally. "Not as threats to be contained, but as teachers we desperately need. Show us what your death world has taught you about life." Valera, still holding Rena's hand, looked up at the darkening sky where the first stars were becoming visible. "Will you teach us how to dance with danger like you do?" "We'll teach anyone who wants to learn," James replied. "That's another thing Earth taught us. The best way to survive is to help others survive with you." The story of humanity's trials spread throughout the galaxy. Earth's reputation changed from a feared death world to a place of profound wisdom. And its children, once seen as potential monsters, became known as something else entirely, nature's finest students, ready to share their hard-won lessons with the stars.